Deputy Director Bongino, you're nothing but a steroid-pumped meathead who went from holding doors to holding badges. The words sliced through the House Oversight Committee hearing room with the venom of someone who had practiced them in the mirror. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood at her microphone, her red lipstick matching her blazer, her hands already moving in those animated gestures that had made her famous on social media. Behind her, a carefully curated group of young supporters held their phones high, live streaming to her millions of followers. Failed cop, failed candidate, failed human being who only succeeded by kissing Trump's ring. She was building momentum now, playing to her audience both in the room and online. Your wife probably left you because even she couldn't stand listening to your conspiracy theories every night. The crowd erupted on cue. Meathead fascist door holder.
What's it like being the dumbest person in every FBI meeting? AOC continued, her voice dripping with contempt. Do they use small words so you understand? Do they draw pictures? Maybe that's why you went from Fox News to FBI. They needed someone who could make the other agents feel smart. She paused for effect, allowing her supporters to fill the silence with their chants. Someone had brought signs, "Defund Bongino," and "FBI equals KGB," and "Meatheads shouldn't have badges." The live stream comments were flowing so fast they blurred fire emojis, laughing faces. "Drag him, Queen!" Dan Bongino sat at the witness table with the stillness of someone who had spent 12 years in the Secret Service, learning to remain calm while people screamed threats inches from his face. His bulk filled the chair, not the steroid-pumped caricature AOC described, but the solid build of someone who had spent decades in law enforcement and personal protection. His expression remained neutral, almost serene, as the verbal assault continued. "And another thing," AOC said, encouraged by his silence. "Everyone knows you only got this position because you spent 4 years spreading lies on Fox News. From conspiracy theorist to deputy director, what a career path, what's next?" InfoWars gets to run the CIA. More laughter from her supporters. More chants. More social media engagement. This was going exactly as she'd planned. The old guard of the Democratic Party might clutch their pearls at her tactics, but her generation understood politics was performance, and she was the best performer in Washington. Bongino's only movement was to adjust 6 manila folders arranged before him on the table. Each bore an FBI evidence label with case numbers clearly visible. He waited until the chanting died down, until AOC had exhausted her prepared attacks, until the room settled into expectant silence. Then he looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. "Are you finished, Congresswoman?" His voice was calm, professional, carrying the authority of someone who had protected presidents and investigated federal crimes. AOC leaned into her microphone. "Oh, I'm just getting started." "Good," Bongino interrupted gently. "Because so am I." He tapped the folders with one thick finger. "I've protected presidents. I've been called worse by better. But since we're doing personal attacks..." He opened the first folder, revealing documents marked with FBI seals and federal case numbers. "Let's see who's really the fraud in this room. And unlike your theatrical performance, everything I'm about to present is evidence in an active federal investigation." He looked at the cameras. FBI case number 2025 NY 178. Multiple counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and campaign finance violations. The crowd's chanting faltered. AOC's perfectly painted smile flickered. "You see, Congresswoman," Bongino continued, his voice steady as granite, "while you were practicing insults in your mirror, we were following the money. Every dollar, every transfer, every lie." He pulled out the first document. "Shall we begin with how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez
from the Bronx was actually cast for the role. The first folder opened to reveal a collection of documents that told a story far different from the legend of the bartender-turned-congresswoman. Bongino extracted each piece of evidence with the methodical precision of someone building a legal case, which was exactly what he was doing. "Justice Democrats," he began, his voice carrying the measured tone of a federal investigator presenting findings. "The organization that discovered you. Their official story is that your brother submitted you to their contest, that you were one of 10,000 nominations, that you were chosen for your authentic voice and grassroots appeal." He pulled out a document marked with FBI evidence tape. "This is a subpoenaed internal memo from Justice Democrats dated November 2016. Subject line, candidate casting call. Not recruitment, not selection, casting." AOC shifted in her seat, her hand moving toward her microphone. "This is ridiculous." "Please let me finish," Bongino said calmly. "You'll have plenty of time to respond when you're under oath." He continued reading from the memo. "Requirements: female Latina, 25 to 35 years old, attractive, strong social media presence, comfortable on camera, able to memorize talking points, theatrical training, a plus." The hearing room had gone quiet. Even AOC's supporters seemed uncertain, now their phones still recording, but their chants silenced. "But that's just the beginning." Bongino continued, producing another document. "This is a contract between you and brand new Congress PAC, the Justice Democrats' sister organization. Dated January 2017, 2 months before your brother allegedly submitted you to their contest. The contract guarantees you a salary of $174,000 per year for 2 years, win or lose. There's also this interesting clause." He adjusted his reading glasses, a gesture that AOC would have mocked minutes ago, but now watched with growing dread. "The candidate agrees to maintain the public persona crafted in consultation with BNC Communications team. This includes biographical details, speech patterns, and policy positions. Deviation from the agreed narrative may result in termination of financial support." "This is taken out of context," AOC protested, but her voice had lost its earlier confidence. "Context?" Bongino pulled out a tablet and connected it to the hearing room's display system. "Let's provide some context. This is video from your audition. Yes, audition. Not interview audition. Obtained during our investigation of Justice Democrats' financial irregularities." The video that played was grainy but unmistakable. A younger AOC stood in what looked like a casting studio, slateboard in hand. A voice off camera gave directions. "Okay, now give us the story about struggling to pay bills while bartending." On screen, AOC nodded, took a breath, and launched into what would become her signature origin story. But when she finished, the off-camera voice wasn't satisfied. "Good, but we need more emotion. Remember, you're not just telling a story, you're making them feel your struggle. Let's try again with tears this time." "Tears on screen?" AOC asked. "Like crying. Trust me, it works. Think about something sad. Dead puppies, whatever works for you." The video showed AOC taking another breath, then delivering the same story, but with eyes welling up, voice cracking at just the right moments. When she finished, she immediately broke character, laughing. "God, they're going to eat this up," she said on the video. "These people are so easy to manipulate. Just tell them what they want to hear. Add some tears, and boom, you're their hero." The hearing room erupted. AOC's supporters looked at each other in confusion. Some put down their phones, others started edging toward the exits. But Bongino wasn't finished. He produced another document, this one a financial record. "Justice Democrats didn't just cast you, they created you. These are receipts for services rendered. Acting coach, $15,000. Social media consultant, $25,000. Speech coaching to adjust accent for authenticity, $10,000. Wardrobe consulting to project working class aesthetic, $8,000. And here's my personal favorite. He continued, pulling out another receipt. Backstory development services provided by a Hollywood script consultant, $20,000 to create. And I quote, believable working-class narrative with emotional hooks and memorable details. He looked up at AOC, who seemed to have shrunk in her chair. You're not a bartender who became a congressman. You're an actress playing a part. And the American people deserve to know who wrote your script. A woman in the gallery stood up. She appeared to be in her 50s, professionally dressed, but clearly nervous. My name is Maria Chen. I used to work for Justice Democrats. Everything he's saying is true. She was chosen for her looks and social media skills. We created her entire persona. Why are you speaking up now? Bongino asked. Because I believed in the cause, Maria said, her voice growing stronger. I thought we were finding real progressive voices, but it was all fake. She's an actress, not an activist. And when I found out about the money, she trailed off, looking at AOC with disgust. Thank you for your courage, Ms. Chen, Bongino said. The FBI will ensure your protection as a whistleblower. He turned back to AOC. Speaking of money, that brings us to folder number 2. He closed the first folder with deliberate finality. You're not Alexandria from the Bronx. You're Sandy from Westchester, playing a role. But the role paid well, didn't it? Much better than bartending. Which brings us to where all that money went. The second folder was thicker than the first, stuffed with bank statements, wire transfer records, and financial documents that painted a picture of systematic corruption. Bongino opened it with the air of someone about to perform an autopsy on a political career. Saikat Chakrabarti, he began, holding up a photograph of a young man with glasses and a beard. Your first chief of staff. Mysterious departure in 2019 amid campaign finance complaints. The media was told he left to focus on other projects. The truth is quite different. He produced a document marked with Department of Justice seals. Mr. Chakrabarti is currently in federal witness protection. He's been cooperating with our investigation for the past 18 months. His testimony has been illuminating. AOC's face had gone from red to pale. Her lawyer was whispering urgently in her ear, but she waved him away. According to Mr. Chakrabarti, Bongino continued, pulling out deposition transcripts, you designed a system to funnel campaign money into personal accounts. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity. Money would flow from campaign donors to your official campaign, then to various PACs, then to shell companies, and finally to personal accounts. He displayed a flowchart on the screen arrows showing the movement of money through various entities. Brand New Congress PAC to Brand New Congress LLC. From there to Riley Roberts Consulting, we'll get to your boyfriend in a moment. From there to AOC Holdings, a company registered in Delaware. And from there, he traced the final arrow to your personal accounts. These are lies, AOC burst out. Saikat is trying to save himself by providing documentation, Bongino interrupted, producing bank statements. These are wire transfer records. Account number ending in 2389 at Chase Bank. That's your campaign account. Here's a transfer of $250,000 to Brand New Congress PAC. Normal enough, but here, he pulled out another statement, is the same $250,000 moving to Brand New Congress LLC the next day, then to Riley Roberts Consulting, then to your personal account. The entire journey took 4 days.
He pulled out more statements, each one showing similar patterns. January 2019, $175,000 makes the same journey. March 2019, $325,000. July 2019, $450,000. Total amount traced through this network, $3.7 million. But don't just take the document's word for it, Bongino said, producing a tablet. Mr. Chakrabarty was kind enough to record several conversations for us. This one is particularly interesting. The audio that played was crystal clear, AOC's voice. Saikat, we need to move another 200K this month. Chakrabarty. Alex, we're already pushing it. The FEC is starting to ask questions. AOC. Then layer it more. Use Riley's company, then create another one if needed. This is how everyone does it. Chakrabarty. I don't think everyone, AOC. Don't go soft on me now. You want to change the system. First you have to win. And winning takes money. Our money. Chakrabarty. It's not our money. It's campaign donations. AOC. It's our money once we wash it properly. Just do what I taught you. The recording ended. The hearing room was silent except for the scratching of reporters' pens. Mr. Chakrabarty also provided these, Bongino said, pulling out handwritten notes. Your handwriting according to our forensic analysts. Instructions on how to structure the transfers, always under 250K. Wait at least 24 hours between transfers. Use Riley for anything over 100K. He produced another document. This is particularly damning. A text message from you to Chakrabarty. Delete all emails about the transfers. If anyone asks, you don't know anything about Roberts Consulting. Obstruction of justice, Bongino noted. Add that to wire fraud, money laundering, and campaign finance violations. But we're not done with the money trail yet. He pulled out a series of photographs. These are from your apartment, the one you claimed you couldn't afford on your congressional salary. Hermes bags, Balenciaga shoes, a kitchen renovation that cost $75,000, all while claiming to be a struggling working-class representative. But here's where it gets really interesting. Bongino continued producing new bank records. These aren't just personal purchases. You were using campaign funds to invest. These are brokerage statements showing purchases of cryptocurrency stocks, real estate investments, all funded by money that originated from campaign donations. He displayed a summary sheet. Total amount stolen from campaign donors, $3.7 million. Total amount recovered by the FBI so far, $2.1 million. The rest we suspect is hidden in cryptocurrency accounts we're still tracing. Mr. Chakrabarty's cooperation has been invaluable, Bongino concluded. He's provided passwords, bank records, and recorded conversations. He also told us about your boyfriend's role in all this, which brings us to folder number 3. As he closed the second folder, AOC's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went even paler. The text was visible to cameras behind her. They know everything. I'm so sorry. Saikat. Yes, Congresswoman, Bongino said, noticing her reaction. Mr. Chakrabarty is very sorry. Sorry he got caught. Sorry he participated. But mostly sorry that you taught him that this was how everyone does it. Because it's not. It's how criminals do it. The third folder bore a yellow evidence tag that read, Roberts Riley, co-conspirator. Bongino opened it with particular care, as if handling something distasteful but necessary. The first item he produced was a corporate registration document. Riley Roberts Consulting, LLC, he read. Incorporated 2018, just months after you took office. Sole proprietor,
Your boyfriend, now husband. Stated business purpose, marketing and strategic communications. Actual purpose, money laundering. He pulled out invoices, laying them out in chronological order. These are the invoices Mr. Roberts submitted to your campaign. Every month, like clockwork. $6,000 for marketing services, $4,500 for strategic planning, $7,200 for digital consulting. Total billed $478,000 over 4 years. My husband is a legitimate consultant, AOC began, but her voice cracked on the word legitimate. Is he? Bongino asked, producing a new document. This is from your campaign's required vendor disclosure. It asks a simple question. Does the vendor have any personal relationship with the candidate? You checked no. That's a federal crime, congresswoman, lying on FEC documents. He pulled out photographs next. These are from your Instagram, before you started scrubbing your social media. You and Mr. Roberts at dinner captioned Date Night with Bay. You and Mr. Roberts on vacation funded by campaign consulting payments. You and Mr. Roberts moving into your apartment together while you claimed he was just a professional vendor. But let's examine what marketing services Mr. Roberts provided for nearly $500,000. Bongino continued, pulling out a thick folder marked Work Product Review. He made a show of flipping through it. Page after page was blank. Our investigators spent months looking for any evidence of actual work. Marketing plans, none. Strategic documents, zero. Digital consulting reports, not a single one. The only service Mr. Roberts provided was being your boyfriend and cashing checks. He produced bank statements next. Here's what happened to the money. Payment received from AOC campaign $6,000. Same-day transfer to personal checking $6,000. From there, rent payments, vacation bookings, restaurant charges. You were living off campaign funds using your boyfriend as a pass-through. But Mr. Roberts wasn't just a passive participant. Bongino continued, his voice hardening. These are text messages between you two recovered from his phone. He read from the transcripts, Riley to AOC. Babe, I need you to approve another invoice. Rent's due. AOC to Riley. How much this time? Riley. Let's do $8K. I want to upgrade the TV too. AOC LOL okay, but call it strategic planning. Another exchange. AOC to Riley. Make sure you deposit the check right away. We need to pay for the Miami trip. Riley. This feels wrong. AOC. Wrong. We're building a movement. Movements need funding. This is our movement. Our money. The hearing room was riveted. In the gallery, a young man in his 30s sat rigid, his face flushed. He wore a crisp white shirt and tie, trying to look professional, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Bongino noticed him. Mr. Roberts, I see you're here today. Would you like to add anything to the record? All eyes turned to Riley Roberts. AOC spun in her chair, her eyes wide with panic. Riley, don't! Riley stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I can't do this anymore. The words burst out of him. They have everything. You said it was legal. You said everyone does it. Riley, shut up, AOC hissed, but he was already moving. You made me do it, Riley continued, his voice cracking. You said if I didn't help, you'd leave me. You said it was the only way to afford our lifestyle. You said, Mr. Roberts, Bongino interrupted calmly, if you'd like to make a statement, we should do this properly. Agent Martinez. A female FBI agent in the gallery stood and approached Riley. Mr. Roberts, we can take your statement in a secure location. You have the right to an attorney. I don't need an attorney, Riley said desperately. I'll tell you everything. The fake invoices, the cryptocurrency accounts. She doesn't think you know about the other Congress members doing the same thing. Riley, AOC screamed, standing up. You're my husband. You can't testify against me. Actually, Bongino corrected, he can. Spousal privilege doesn't apply to ongoing criminal conspiracies. And based on these documents, the conspiracy is very much ongoing. Riley was led away by the FBI agent, but not before turning back to AOC one last time. I loved you, he said quietly, but you loved the money more. As the door closed behind him, Bongino returned to his documents. Mr. Roberts has been cooperating with us for the past 3 weeks. He's provided passwords to cryptocurrency wallets, offshore account information, and names of other participants in the scheme. He produced a photograph of a digital wallet interface. This is just one of 6 cryptocurrency accounts Mr. Roberts helped us locate. Current balance $340,000. All traceable to campaign funds. All hidden from FEC disclosure. All criminal. But the really interesting thing about Mr. Roberts's cooperation, Bongino continued, pulling out a new document, is what he told us about your investment strategy. Which brings us to folder number 4. He closed the 3rd folder slowly, letting the weight of Riley's betrayal sink in. AOC sat frozen, her carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. Her husband of less than 2 years had just walked away to testify against her. The man she'd trusted with her secrets had become her biggest liability. Your boyfriend, husband, kept meticulous records, Bongino noted. He said you insisted on it. Said you were proud of how much money you were making. Pride Congresswoman goes before the fall. The 4th folder bore the label Securities Fraud, GND Insider Trading. Bongino opened it with the practiced ease of someone who had reviewed these documents dozens of times, each review revealing new layers of corruption. The Green New Deal. He began pulling out a bound copy of the resolution. Your signature legislation. Your gift to the planet. Also, apparently, your gift to your bank account. He produced a series of photographs first. Let's start with something simple. These are DMV records showing you own a Tesla Model 3, purchased 2019, right after you started attacking traditional automobiles. Price, $48,000, paid in cash. Cash that came from where exactly, AOC's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, but she remained silent, staring at the documents as if willing them to disappear. But a car is just hypocrisy, Bongino continued. What we're really interested in is this. He pulled out trading records from various brokerage accounts. These are your husband's investment accounts. Note the timing of certain trades. He displayed a timeline on the screen. February 4, 2019, Riley Roberts purchases $50,000 in solar panel stocks. First Solar Sun Power Enphase. February 7, 2019, you announce the Green New Deal. Those stocks jump an average of 23%. February 8th, Riley sells. Profit, $11,500 in 4 days. Coincidence? Bongino asked rhetorically. Let's continue. June 2019, Riley shorts traditional auto stocks, Ford, GM. June 15th, you announce hearings on auto emissions that you know will be negative. Stocks drop. Riley's profit, $18,000. The pattern was clear and repeated dozens of times. Every major environmental announcement preceded by strategic trades. Every congressional hearing on green technology following suspicious investment activity. Total profit from trading on your legislative activities, $2.3 million, Bongino calculated. That's not investing. That's insider trading using congressional information. He pulled out text messages next. These are from your phone to Riley. Would you like me to read them aloud? Without waiting for a response. AOC to Riley, March 2020. Buy TSLA puts now. Announcing investigation tomorrow. Riley, how much? AOC. Everything we can afford. This will tank them. Riley, isn't this illegal? AOC. Only if we get caught. Do it. Another exchange. Bongino continued. September 2020. AOC solar hearing next week will be positive. Load up on SEDG. Riley, you sure? AOC, I'm writing the questions. I know what answers we'll get. Trust me. But the evidence went beyond just text messages. Bongino produced credit card statements next. While you were preaching about sustainability and attacking capitalism, let's see how you were living. He began reading charges. Whole Foods Market, $1, $100, $890, $1, $250. Monthly average $1, $100. That's more than many of your constituents spend on food for their entire families. Sephora, $800, $650, $900. Nordstrom, $2, $100, $3, $400, $1, $800. Equinox Gym, $300 monthly membership. While telling your constituents to sacrifice for the planet, you were living a luxury lifestyle funded by insider trading. He pulled out Instagram screenshots. These are from your lifestyle influencer phase. Designer outfits at climate protests. $500 shoes at union rallies. All while claiming to be a working-class representative. But here's the most damning part, Bongino said, producing a new set of documents. These are from a private investment club you and Riley joined. Green Investors Alliance. Membership fee, $50,000. Members share insights about upcoming environmental legislation. He read from the club's seized communications. AOC to group transportation hearing next month will be brutal for airlines. Short accordingly. Another member. Thanks for the tip, made $200K on UAL puts. AOC. Happy to help. We're all in this together. You turned the Green New Deal into the Green New Steel, Bongino summarized. Environmental legislation became your personal trading signals. Congressional hearings became profit opportunities. You weren't saving the planet, you were robbing it. He pulled out one final item from this section, a photograph of AOC at a climate protest, holding a sign reading, "People over profit." This was taken the same day you made $75,000 shorting oil stocks based on legislation you knew was coming. People over profit, indeed. The SEC has frozen all accounts related to this scheme, Bongino noted. The total amount of illegal gains is still being calculated, but it exceeds $2 million. That's wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit insider trading. Each charge carries up to 20 years in federal prison. He closed the folder and looked at AOC with something that might have been disappointment. You had a chance to actually make a difference. Instead, you made a fortune. The planet is still warming, but your bank account certainly isn't. The fifth folder was marked with a red tab labeled Puerto Rico Fraud, Elder Abuse. Bongino opened it with particular distaste, as if the contents were especially offensive to him. June 2021. He began pulling out printouts of tweets. You posted these photos of your grandmother's home in Puerto Rico. Damage from Hurricane Maria, you said. Leaking roof, damaged infrastructure. Your abuela living in squalor, while Trump ignored Puerto Rico. The tweets were dramatic, featuring images of water damage, exposed ceiling, deteriorating conditions. AOC's words were emotional. My abuela is suffering because of systemic neglect. This is what environmental racism looks like. The response was immediate. Bongino continued producing GoFundMe records. Your supporters, moved by your grandmother's plight, donated generously. In 48 hours, the fundraising campaign reached $500,000, $500,000 for your abuela's home repairs. He pulled out bank records next. Here's where that money went. Wire transfer from GoFundMe to your account, $500,000. From your account to, well, let's trace it, $50,000 to a contractor, but not in Puerto Rico, in New York, for your apartment renovation. The evidence was meticulous. Receipts for kitchen appliances, designer furniture, bathroom fixtures, all dated shortly after the GoFundMe campaign, all paid from the same account that received the donations. But surely some money went to your grandmother, Bongino asked with mock innocence. He pulled out more documents. Let's see. Travel records show you visited Puerto Rico once, after the fundraising, for 36 hours, for a photo shoot. He produced photographs from that trip. AOC posing with her grandmother, both smiling. The background showed the same damaged home from the original tweets. Nothing had been repaired. But here's where it gets interesting, Bongino said, pulling out property records. Your grandmother's house. It was already repaired. These are insurance documents showing a payout of $75,000 from Hurricane Maria damage. Repairs completed in 2019, 2 years before your tweets. A woman in the gallery stood up. She appeared to be in her 60s, with the dignified bearing of someone who had lived through real hardship. My name is Maria Santos. I am from Puerto Rico, from the same neighborhood as her abuela. Please continue, Bongino encouraged. The house was fixed long ago. Maria said, her accent thick with emotion. We all knew, but when we saw the tweets, the lies, we were ashamed. She used our pain, our real suffering for money. Her abuela was so embarrassed. She told us, I don't know why Alexandria does this. We don't need the money. Thank you for your courage in speaking out, Bongino said. He turned back to his documents. We interviewed your grandmother, Congresswoman. Through a translator, she told us she never asked for help, never authorized the fundraising, never saw a penny of the money. He pulled out a transcript of the interview. She said, and I quote, Alexandria comes for pictures sometimes, tells me to look sad. I don't understand why. My house is fine. I have everything I need. But the exploitation goes deeper. Bongino continued producing financial records. You've been claiming your grandmother as a dependent on your taxes, getting deductions. But these records show she's never lived with you, never received financial support from you. That's tax fraud. He displayed a summary of the evidence. Total raised using your grandmother's image, $500,000. Amount sent to Puerto Rico, $0. Amount spent on your luxury apartment, $480,000. Amount your grandmother received, $0. But here's the part that really bothers me, Bongino said, his voice hardening. These are messages from Puerto Rican families who really did need help, who saw your fundraising and thought, if the Congresswoman's own grandmother can get help, maybe we can too. They reached out to you, begged for assistance. You blocked them on social media. He read from the messages, please, Congresswoman, my family lost everything. We have no roof, no food. Can you help? You raised money for your abuela. What about us? You turned your grandmother into a prop, Bongino concluded. Used Puerto Rico's suffering as a personal ATM. Exploited elder tragedy for apartment renovations. That's not just fraud, it's obscene. In the gallery, Maria Santos was crying quietly. We trusted her. She was supposed to be our voice. Instead, she stole from our pain. AOC sat silent, her face a mask of shock. The woman who had built her career on righteous anger couldn't summon a word of defense. $500,000, Bongino repeated, stolen from people who thought they were helping a grandmother in need, spent on sub-zero refrigerators and marble countertops, while your actual grandmother sat in Puerto Rico, ashamed of what you'd become. The final folder was thicker than the others, marked with multiple evidence tabs and a red stamp reading, Foreign Influence, National Security. Bongino opened it with the gravity of someone about to reveal the worst betrayal of all. Everything we've covered so far has been about money, he began. Fraud, theft, corruption, all financial crimes. But this is about something far worse. This is about selling out the very people you claim to represent. He pulled out an audio recording device first. October 2023, Socialist Conference in New York. Private donor event, invitation only. You thought it was a safe space. No reporters, no recordings. But one of your socialist comrades had second thoughts about what they heard. The audio quality was excellent, clearly capturing the sounds of an upscale event, clinking glasses, muted conversations, and then AOC's voice slightly slurred, obviously intoxicated. You want to know the truth, AOC's recorded voice said. These working-class idiots will believe anything if you say it with enough emotion. Free health care, free college, Green New Deal. They don't understand none of it's actually free. Someone pays. But as long as it's not them, they'll vote for you forever. Laughter from others at her table. Someone asked a question unintelligible on the recording. Revolution, AOC's voice continued. Please, I didn't get into this to start a revolution. I got into this to join the ruling class, not overthrow it. The squad thing, it's brilliant marketing. 4 women of color taking on the system. Netflix should pay us royalties for the drama. More laughter. Another question. Of course I know most of this stuff won't work, but that's not the point. The point is power. Get power. Keep power. Use power. These kids with their protest signs and their Twitter activism, they're just useful idiots. They do the work. We get the rewards. The recording continued for several more minutes. AOC mocking her supporters, laughing about their naivety, discussing how easy it was to manipulate young voters with emotional appeals and impossible promises. The hearing room was dead silent when the recording ended. Even AOC's most ardent supporters looked stricken. This wasn't political opposition. This was their hero revealing her contempt for them. But that's just drunk talk, Bongino said. Let's look at actions. These are financial records from the Justice Democrats and related organizations. Notice the funding sources. He displayed a complex web of transactions. Money flowing from various foundations and nonprofits. But trace it back far enough and you find interesting origins. This $2 million comes from a foundation funded by Chinese business interests. This $1.5 million Russian oligarch money laundered through environmental groups. This $3 million Iranian funds through Qatar. You knew, Bongino stated flatly. These are emails between you and Justice Democrats' leadership discussing the foreign money. You not only knew, you actively courted it. He read from the emails, AOC to JD leadership, the Chinese are willing to increase funding if we push trade policies they favor. I'm comfortable with that. Another email, Russian money is money. As long as it's cleaned properly, I don't care where it comes from. But it wasn't just about taking foreign money, Bongino continued. It was about what you gave in return. These are your voting records on key issues. Every vote that benefited Chinese trade interests, every position that weakened Russian sanctions, every policy that helped Iranian allies. You weren't representing the Bronx, you were representing Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran. He pulled out intelligence documents, partially redacted, but damning. FBI counterintelligence has been monitoring communications between Justice Democrats and foreign handlers. You were designated as Agent Brooklyn. Your handler referred to you as the most valuable asset in Congress. These are intercepted communications from Chinese intelligence. Quote, Brooklyn continues to deliver. Her influence on Trade Committee is worth the investment. Increase funding for 2024 operations. You sold out your country, Bongino said, his voice heavy with disgust. Not for ideology, not for principle, for money, for power, for the very things you claim to oppose. He pulled out one final document. This is a summary of the investigation. 4 years of surveillance, financial tracking, and intelligence gathering. You're not just a fraud, Congresswoman. You're a foreign agent. A traitor. The complete scope of the betrayal was staggering. Every principle AOC had claimed to champion had been a lie. Every attack on the establishment had been cover for joining it. Every promise to her constituents had been a manipulation. The woman who ran as a democratic socialist was actually a capitalist socialist, Bongino concluded. Capitalize for yourself, socialize the costs to others. The perfect con for the social media age. In the gallery, several of AOC's young supporters were crying. Others had already left, unable to process the betrayal. The revolution they thought they were part of had been a marketing scheme. Their champion had been a charlatan. Justice Democrats wasn't a political movement, Bongino said, closing the final folder. It was a foreign influence operation, and you were their star performer. Until today. The hearing room had transformed from a political theater into a crime scene. The choreographed chants had died, replaced by the hushed murmur of betrayed supporters and the furious scratching of reporters' pens. AOC sat alone at her table, abandoned by staff and supporters alike, her designer blazer now looking like costume armor that had failed its purpose. Even the squad had abandoned her. Representatives Omar and Tlaib had quietly moved to seats further away, their body language screaming disassociation. The sisterhood of progressive politics had dissolved in the acid of exposed truth. Dan Bongino gathered his folders methodically, each one a nail in the coffin of AOC's political career. As he stacked them, he looked at the woman who had called him a steroid-pumped meathead less than 2 hours ago. She seemed to have aged years in minutes. You know, Congresswoman, he said, his voice quiet, but carrying in the silent room. You called me dumb. Said I was the stupidest person in FBI meetings, but I was smart enough to follow the money, smart enough to trace the networks, smart enough to catch you. He continued with the calm of someone who had completed a difficult but necessary task. You said my wife probably left me because of my conspiracy theories. My wife of 20 years is actually sitting right there in the gallery. He nodded toward a well-dressed woman who gave him a small supportive smile. Still married, still strong, unlike your relationship with Mr. Roberts, which lasted about as long as your integrity. You attacked my service. 12 years in the Secret Service, protecting presidents of both parties. 4 years in the NYPD before that. Every day putting my life on the line for others. While you put others' lives on the line for your profit. The doors to the hearing room opened with precision as FBI agents entered in formation. Their movements were professional
practiced the culmination of years of investigation now coming to its conclusion. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the lead agent, announced, her voice carrying the weight of federal authority. You are under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, campaign finance violations, tax evasion, securities, fraud, theft of government funds, and conspiracy to act as an unregistered foreign agent. AOC shot to her feet, the last vestiges of her public persona flaring. This is fascism. This is political persecution. I am the future. Your future, the agent replied calmly, is a federal correctional facility. You have the right to remain silent. I will not be silenced, AOC screamed, but her voice cracked, the performance finally failing her. My supporters will... She looked around the room. Her supporters were gone. Those who remained looked at her with the hollow eyes of the truly disillusioned. The revolution had been revealed as a grift, and they were its marks. As the agents approached with handcuffs, AOC made one last desperate play. Her eyes welled with tears, the same tears she had practiced in that audition video years ago. Please, she said, her voice breaking. I'm just a girl from the Bronx trying to save it, Bongino interrupted. We have video of you practicing those tears. Multiple takes, remember. These idiots will believe anything. Your words, not mine. The tears stopped as quickly as they had started. The mask finally fell, completely revealing the calculating opportunist beneath. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, binding the hands that had signed so many fraudulent documents, she turned to Bongino with naked hatred. You destroyed everything, she hissed. No, Bongino replied quietly. You destroyed everything. I just documented it. As they led her past the witness table, past the folders that contained the evidence of her crimes, AOC's designer heels clicked against the floor in a rhythm that sounded like a countdown to the end. The live streams that had brought her to power now broadcast her downfall. The social media queen dethroned by her own digital trail. At the door, she turned back one last time, perhaps hoping for a final moment of defiance. Instead, she saw Maria Santos from Puerto Rico still standing in the gallery. My abuela is ashamed of me, Maria said quietly, but not as ashamed as yours is of you. The words hit harder than any legal charge. AOC's face crumpled, and for perhaps the first time in her political career, she had no response. No quick comeback, no practiced emotion, just silence. As the doors closed behind her, Bongino addressed the room one final time. What happened here today wasn't about politics. It wasn't about progressive versus conservative or young versus old. It was about truth versus lies, about service versus self-service, about representing the people versus robbing them. He looked at the abandoned socialist democratic signs, the tax the rich banners, now seeming like cruel jokes. She promised revolution and delivered corruption, promised change and delivered more of the same, promised to fight for the working class, and instead picked their pockets. The deputy director of the FBI is supposed to investigate federal crimes, he concluded. Today, we investigated one of the biggest frauds in congressional history. Not because she was a progressive, not because she was young, not because she was a woman, but because she was a criminal. As he gathered his evidence folders and prepared to leave, one young woman in the gallery called out, "What are we supposed to believe in now?" Bongino paused, considering his answer. Believe in truth, believe in service, believe in leaders who live their values, not just tweet them.
And next time someone promises you everything for free, ask who's really paying. Because, as you learned today, it's usually you. He walked out of the hearing room with the same steady pace he'd entered, leaving behind a political movement in ruins, and a generation of activists wondering how they'd been fooled so completely. The actress had taken her final bow, but instead of applause, she faced only the cold reality of justice. In the aftermath, the investigation expanded. More arrests followed as the full scope of the Justice Democrats' fraud network was exposed. Foreign influence operations were disrupted. Campaign finance laws were strengthened. But perhaps the most lasting impact was on the young supporters who had believed. They had learned a harsh lesson about charisma without character, about the danger of movement without morals, about the difference between performing change and creating it. The revolution had been televised after all. It just wasn't the revolution they expected.